What happened at the worst party you've ever been to? I went to a friend's graduation party after high school. I wasn't great friends with him, but I figured I would stop by with my GF because he was nice enough to invite me. The party was so done up. Tables full of food, streamers, confetti, all that crap, and my GF and I were the only ones there. I felt awful. His parents clearly went all out to celebrate it, and it was so uncomfortable being one of 5 people there, including him and his parents. I felt awful for him. We stayed for hours out of pity, and just kind of made small talk. Super depressing colon. This is why I never throw parties for myself. But good on you for actually showing up. You kept that from being the worst day ever, even if it was super awkward. The floor collapsed under the weight of a throng of jumping freshmen. I'm sorry you had to party with freshmen. High school, late 80s, at an outside party with a bonfire to celebrate the end of the school year. Some numbnuts throws a glass bottle of beer into the fire. About 20 minutes later the bottle explodes and shoots a stream of boiling beer all over a girl's crotch and legs. Ambulance was called. I believe she required several skin grafts over several months. I can still remember her shrilling scream and then her passing out. Good lord, that sounds frightening. My brother was at a party once where there were more than a couple underage drinkers present. The house they were at had a thin driveway, so all the cars were packed into a bottleneck. The night wore on and around 1 in the morning someone decided they wanted to go home. They found the girl who owned the car at the front of the bottleneck and asked her to move her car so she could get out. She said she couldn't because she had a breathalyzer installed in her car and it wouldn't start until someone sober blew into it. They went around the party and tried to find anyone who hasn't been drinking and couldn't find one. Another guy had the brilliant idea of asking the cool 20-something dude next door to do it. So an envoy of teens head over to the house next door and ask the dude living there if he would please blow into a breathalyzer so they could leave. The dude takes a minute to look the group over, takes a drag of his cigarette, and says, "You're gonna give me $25 for every person at the party or I'm calling the cops." That last bit played out like a movie in my head. So awesome. My sister's birthday was in the middle of the school holidays, and for her 7th birthday she had a party that no one turned up to. Turns out our mother put the wrong date on the invites, so a lot of people had tried to come over the day before whilst we were out. That's better than the alternative where the date was correct and flat out no one showed up. Some girl apparently had made out with a guy who wasn't her boyfriend before leaving. Someone at the party tells him via text and a little while later someone is kicking down the door. He barges in waving a gun around screaming, "Which one of you made out with my girl?" People are ducking, scurrying away and I'm just standing there thinking, if this is how I die I'm going to be P. Host who knew him quickly pushes him out the door. My buddy's girlfriend jerked off his dog while he was out back talking. She did it to prove she could get anyone or anything off. It was horrifying. I bet every guy around her was really disappointed when I can't get anyone off, turned into watch while I get this dog off. My best friend and 2 others were shot and killed at the party. Some friends and I decided to throw a going away party for myself, as I was moving out of the country. The party was pretty big, we had a keg and quite a few bottles. I knew everyone there, and it was going great. I received a call from a friend, who requested that I grab him a couple cups from the keg before it got emptied. No problem. Got the cups full and headed to the kitchen. While I was in the kitchen, an argument broke loose in the living room, which I could see from the kitchen. It was my best friend and a random guy who I had seen around a few times before. The random guy was obviously messed up and had started asking my friend where his brother was. Of course, his brother was at the party, but in the backyard. My friend said something along the lines of, "You've gotta get through me to get to him," and that's when I saw my friend's eyes light up as the random guy pulled a gun from his pants. Instinctively, I hit the floor and hid in a corner of the kitchen. There was no delay, he just started shooting. He unloaded the whole clip consecutively. Apparently, after shooting my friend in the head twice and spraying many of my other friends in the living room with his blood, he turned around and began shooting into the crowd of people who had been watching. He shot and killed another friend of mine, and shot another friend 3 times in the stomach. He survived, but just barely. I stayed in my corner, cowering and frozen. I knew I had to GTFO and don't look at anything. People were screaming you killed him and the 100 people that were in the house were now trying to leave through every door. I finally came out of the kitchen and fled through the living room, keeping my eyes fixated on the door. Looking back on it, I actually jumped over one of the guys who had been shot. It didn't register in my mind why he was just laying on the floor. According to the news, the shooter fled to his house. The cops found him there a couple hours later and camped out in front of his place. He came outside, holding his gun, and was shot and killed by the police. It later came out that the argument was over a girl, and how my best friend's brother was now with her. Apparently he didn't like that, and had decided to kill him. I don't really go to big parties anymore. R.I.P. Ben. Man, reading through the comments I was like, all these sound like some flavor of a party everyone's been to. This was the first I read that was like, dang, that really is bad. I would have PTSD after that. Hope you're alright now. Since many of these stories are about drunk crapping and puking and other horrible things, allow me to lighten the mood with some comedy. For one unlucky tween partygoer, this was definitely the worst party ever. My pal had a birthday sleepover. We were in 8th or 9th grade, I think. Street Fighter 2 had just came out for the SNES, so that was basically all we did. His parents had laid out some snacks and drinks on a party table, and there was one of these huge bags of party-sized Doritos there. We were playing Street Fighter when one of the guys grabbed a chip, bit into it, and yelled, "Doug, this chip is wet." He began investigating the bag and we quickly discovered that all the chips were wet. The birthday boy's 5-year-old little brother had taken advantage of our Street Fighter distraction and licked all of the Dorito dust from every chip and placed them back in the bag. We found him playing in his room, his face covered in the implicating dust. I think college has desensitized me to drunk people at parties, so most of those stories don't bother me too much, but this would have freaked me the heck out. Went to a bachelor party at a house someone rented with a buddy. We got there late, so everyone was pretty lit by the time we got there, especially the bachelor. Now, he hired like 4 strippers for the party to walk around and dance for everybody, but at one point the strippers took the bachelor to the middle of the room and they were going to do a dance just for him. Again, by this time the dude is gone, but he manages to stumble into the chair in the middle of the room. The strippers set up this kiddie pool in front of him and a couple of them were going to wrestle each other covered in baby oil. While they were oiling each other up in the middle of the room, one of the other girls starts to grind up on the guy and dance for him. Well, she made it past like one verse of "Pour some sugar on me" when homie just threw up everywhere. I mean, this was like someone turned on a fire hose of vomit. Of course he just drenched that poor girl that was dancing for him, which made her freak out and run away towards the kiddie pool, which, remind you, has 2 oiled up strippers. Covered in vomit, she slips, takes the other girls down with her and she throws up all over them. At this point there's 3 strippers, flailing around like fish out of water, trying desperately to get out of a kiddie pool covered in baby oil and vomit, slipping and falling over each other while the bachelor is passed the frick out, covered in vomit, drooling on himself in a chair in the middle of the room. And just to add to this, I guess the strippers bring a guy with them for protection or whatever, and he is losing his crap. He's trying to get the girls out of the pool, getting all sorts of nasty crap on himself, slipping around while just repeating "what the frick" over and over. Good times. I'm really glad I scrolled this far. Went to another college to visit some friends. I walk through the door and realize something's wrong. They were all drunk and watching some fat chick poop on the floor. I left 5 minutes later still laughing hysterically. I visited a buddy of mine at his college and he invited me to his fraternity's party. They forgot to send the social email to the sorority, so none of them showed up. This was supposed to be a huge party, so all the broth showed up hammered and angry at seemingly everyone that there were no girls. It was a toga party. 55 dudes, 0 girls, and 55 togas. Better than fewer than 55 togas. A couple of months ago I went to my friend's party, which was joined with his flatmates. About 20 minutes after we got there, the housemate started banging on a glass with a fork and one of my friends got everyone to quiet down, assuming it was a speech. The guy then says there are too many people here that I don't know and told me and most of my friends to leave. He took us down to let us out but couldn't unlock the front door, so we had to awkwardly stand there for 15 minutes until he found the housemate we were friends with and made him let us all out. I was invited to a birthday party and I took a 6-pack of beer. I found out halfway through the party that it was actually an anniversary party for the woman's first year of being sober. Everyone at the party was from the group at Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the only person standing there with a beer in my hand. I quickly left and was too embarrassed to take the remaining beers. For years after, I wondered whether any of those people drank the rest of my beer and fell off the wagon as a result. Backstory: we had a friend that liked to throw parties, but most of the people that showed up were underage, including me. I went to a few of his parties, but he lived in a dorm and the parties got bigger and bigger, so my so and I got sketched out and stopped going. Good thing too, because the next one got busted. 50 underage people with 2 guys that were 21, the host and another random friend. The host was charged and kicked out of the dorm, and everyone except for the of age friend had to go do student conduct. Fast forward a couple months and he's throwing another party in his new apartment. I was living in the same complex, and my roommates and I decided we'd go. The host had hyped it up a bit. He had a Facebook page for his parties, and it was supposed to start at 10. Of course, we don't show up on time cause that's uncool, and we get there around 11 after pre-gaming a bit. When we get there, there's techno music and lights in the window, but when the door opens there's no one there but the host and a keg of Shock Top. It's just me, 3 friends I brought, and the lonely host. We tried to pick it up a bit by playing some drinking games, but the host was desperately texting everyone in his phone to try to get people to come and not even paying attention to the 4 guests he does have. At one point a few more people knocked on the door but left when they saw it was empty. He ended up putting on Space Jam. We left about 30 minutes in because we couldn't take it anymore. I threw a surprise birthday party for my middle sister last year and she got super upset. She cried and made a huge scene in front of everyone at the restaurant. She thought her boyfriend was gonna propose because he wouldn't tell her where they were going. She's the worst. Very ungrateful girl, I must say. Well, I'm late to the party, hahaha, but here's mine. Senior year of college, me and 2 classmates rented a big, crappy house in which we held big, crappy parties most weekends. We were all theater majors, so every time a show opened or some other big event occurred in our major, we invited everyone over afterward to get sloppy and stupid. One of our last parties before graduation, my roommate invited her friend from high school down. He seemed like a pretty nice guy when I met him during the day, and at the party he was even nicer, giving out bumps of C to all of our friends in my roommate's bedroom. Now, I'm not too prudish about drug use. Though I wouldn't do coke myself, I don't necessarily have a problem with other people doing so. But this dude was a bona fide drug dealer, so I drank a little more and avoided my roommate's bedroom. Flash forward a few hours, and suddenly some coked out chick I didn't know is puking in our fridge. Plenty of people have puked at my house. It's what you get when you throw parties, but never in my dang fridge. I had just gone grocery shopping earlier that day, so I was feeling pretty pee. At least this girl was kind enough to move over to the sink for her second wave. As I accompany the girl out of the house and call her a cab, her friends arrive and are all, "Where are you taking our friend? She's sick. WHORU. I respond, "I live here, and your friend just vomited on my cauliflower." The friends are also pretty drunk. Not sure if they were coked out, but they may have been. Anyway, they shout a little bit at me, but when they realize that I'm not actually doing anything wrong, they start shouting at their friend for being such a freaking freshman. By this point, the girl is sitting on my lawn and pulling up the grass. I explain that I've called a cab and tell the 2 others to just wait until it gets there and to please get their friend home. Back inside, the party is starting to wane, and I'm grateful, cause I've got a freaking fridge to clean. But when I arrive in the kitchen, there's the C dealer, whistling a happy tune and cleaning the puke out of my fridge. He looks at me and says, "Hey, don't worry, man. I've got this." Next morning, the coke dealer is gone, but the fridge is spotless. He even bought me some new cauliflower. TLDR. C dealer cleaned vomit out of my fridge. This ended up far better than I had imagined. Was invited to a sorority party and thought it was going to be like the movies. Wild. Boy was I wrong. Ended up sitting in the corner of a room smoking hash all night and watched one girl eat an entire roast chicken to herself before I sauntered home blazed as frick at midnight. There was no alcohol at the party. It wasn't like the movies. That sounds chill AF. Acquaintance I had met a few weeks prior invited me to a surprise party for his girlfriend. He said free beer, so I was there. I show up and it's pre-gaming and your usual college shenanigans. Person in charge of keeping her busy texts him and says they'll be home soon. We are all pretty blitzed at this point, but we manage to start hiding. 2 minutes pass, then 2 more, and nothing. Finally I get up to go find him. He's getting SBJ from one of the other girls at the party. They barely noticed me, but in the meantime, the girlfriend came to the front door and she couldn't have been more excited. Everything other than that was going great until I was formally introduced to the girl giving some sloppy head. It was the girlfriend's sister. No one at this party knew except me. That was the worst party because it sobered me up quick with awkwardness all night. I bet that relationship lasted. It was a bachelor party. A friend of a friend was getting married. I ended up there because my buddy had an extra invitation. Strippers all around. Booze and crap. About 30 minutes later, 5 to 6 wives break in the place and start to yell at their husbands. Almost all of them with a stripper by their side. I left as soon as possible and masturbated myself to sleep. Masturbated? Oh frick yeah. Bills? Working full time. Oh yeah. Maybe I'll read a book after this, oh yeah. Sensible meals and budgeting, ooh ugh. Few years ago my friend threw a big party at the house she shared with 3 guys. Everyone who lived in this house was in a relationship, and all of them had been friends since they were about 11. The morning of the party it emerged that a few days before one of the guys had sexually assaulted another's girlfriend. At the party everyone was trying to keep this down low because only 3 people knew. I was told that he couldn't come because he was ill and went to stay at home for a day or 2. The entire story came out at about 2 AM. Everyone was screaming. Tears everywhere. So many punches were thrown. And the guy who did it wasn't even there. The house was wrecked completely. It ended at like 4 AM with me and a couple of other people just sitting on the steps eating the cupcakes someone brought, staring at the mess. That party, and the events leading up to it, completely destroyed a friend group. The guy that did it maintains that it was mutual. The girl it happened to maintains he tried to rape her. The 4 people that lived together divided down the middle and haven't spoken to the other 2 since they moved out 3 weeks after the party. Whoa, that's pretty freaking bad. I think they should have cancelled the dang party. Fools decided to hold the keg in the basement. The party got way too crowded and people ended up camping around the keg. As you can imagine, the basement got exceedingly hot and crowded, with too many bodies, stagnant air, low ceilings and heat. Someone eventually threw up. This coupled with an already empty keg caused a stampede for the one narrow staircase out. A bottleneck ensued and someone got wedged and pushed so hard into the door frame at the base of the stairs that their arm broke in 2 places. Hysteria. Police and an ambulance ended up on the scene and the party was over. TLDR. Don't put the keg in the basement. Another reminder of just how advanced our species is. We will trample people to avoid vomit. The worst was a large second-year college party at some kid's off-campus apartment. Some of us noticed that people kept disappearing, without a word, from the party, until we opened a bedroom door and saw an orgy in progress, with people so boozed up, or high, that there were no boundaries as to who was doing what, and to whom. 2 couples got into a fight. Later, when they realized their partners were doing each other, the rest of us just left before things got worse. If that's the worst party you've been to, you must be doing alright. My 9th birthday party. I invited the entire class as well as my only friends. They went to another school. The only person that showed up was my grandpa. Over 10 years ago my employees got together to throw me a going away party. It was held at a local bar that had closed to the public just for the party, so of course I'm feeling really special. There was a kid there, around 19 years old, who was a really good guy but generally attracted trouble. I used to talk to him all the time and anytime I sensed that he was about to step out and do something stupid I used to always say, you know the worst gift a kid can give his mother? A dead son. There's a long story behind that, but it just somehow became a thing I always said to him. Anyway, I gave a quick speech and started to duck out just as things were livening up so everybody could have their fun while I returned to my wife and our newborn. I bumped into that kid on the way out, talked to him a bit, and of course the dead son line was the last thing I said before I left. Actually, I said, you know the worst gift, and he answered, a dead son. Gave me a hug, and that was it. Pretty obvious how this story ends. Got the call a few hours later telling me he'd been killed in a car wreck. Turns out that he was trying to do good, hadn't drank a drop, no drugs, or anything. He just got into the wrong car and let a drunk idiot drive him home. There were about 4 kids in the car and he was the only one that didn't walk away. Sad. Dang. That's brutal. Probably the one my friends convinced me to throw in my dad's house when he was away. 1. Someone took a crap in my washing machine. 2. Someone wrapped themselves in toilet paper and set themselves on fire. 3. Someone stole coins from my dad's coin collection. Frick, I felt bad about that. 4. Someone broke the bathroom mirror. 5. A group of kids burned cigarette holes in our fancy couch. Some other kids upstairs burnt holes in the carpet. 6. A huge group of 30-year-olds showed up with a keg. We were 17 at the time, so WTF. And we almost got into a fight for not letting them in. 7. The girl I had just started getting close with left with a random group of people when things started dying down. 8. Lastly, no one stayed to help clean and my dad came back a day early. Worst party ever. Friend told me about this corporate party held for the clients he was at. Open bar but pretty dull, with people being on their best behavior to schmooze and make the clients feel important. It was open bar in the sense that employees were understood to hold their crap together. One very low on the totem pole employee got hammered drunk with one of their biggest clients and finger banged the heck out of her in the pool for like half an hour. Fired that following Monday. Probably worth it as he was making minimum wage. That's the guy you promote, not fire. Imagine the client's disappointment next time she visits the office. From another thread, a clown came to my birthday party. I was 2 and the clown pulled out what us kids thought was a water gun, but it was a real gun. He proceeded to take all the mom's watches and purses and left. This was in Mexico. Walked into my kitchen to see a very large semi-pro football player choking out a girl over the sink. I yell, what the frick are you doing? And he asks me who the frick I am. When I say it's my apartment, he stops, reaches out his hand and says, sorry, man. No disrespect. Great party. My wife was on her way up to the north of England to be a bridesmaid for her friend who she has known since they were young. Her friend has learning disabilities, but seemed happy with her husband-to-be. On the morning of the wedding, the groom was arrested for molesting young children. He was, apparently, a known pedophile. The bride's family went ahead with the wedding reception anyway. They still had the wedding reception. An old friend who unfortunately is no longer with us used to throw house parties all the time in high school. It would usually be 15-30 people getting wasted and doing hard drugs. This one particular time he hosted a massive high school party because his parents weren't home. So he had probably between 80-90 of us teenagers at his house partying like crazy. Ecstasy, coke, shrooms, and of course tons of pot and booze. About an hour and a half goes by and people are messed up and having a blast. I did about 4-5 grams of shrooms that night, so I was toast. My buddy who hosted the party filled up capsules with nutmeg. Yes, nutmeg. And he was swallowing those all night. Read up about a large consumption of nutmeg. So like I said, an hour and a half goes by and someone asks him where his parents went on vacation. His response: they're not on vacation. They went out to watch a movie. Just then is when the car rolled up on the driveway filled with a bunch of drunk-ass stoned punks. Everyone ran out of the house and to the park closest to his place. Every single person in that house took off. Everyone. Even the guy who hosted the party. I don't know if he was worried his parents would kill him or if the nutmeg fricked him up so much that he didn't know he was at his own house. Man, I miss that guy. I don't know if he was worried his parents would kill him. An old friend who unfortunately is no longer with. So, the obvious question is, if you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.